Welcome to the Style Sports Hub, presented by Vann Gannaway Chevrolet.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Sports Hub podcast presented by Vann Gannaway Chevrolet. I'm your host, Kyle Coppola. It's a pleasure to have you here. We've got Brad Lord here today, the South Lake head coach. We're going to be talking to him. We'll also be talking with Patrick Todd coming up as well here on the Sports Hub, which is presented by Lake Center Home Care, Lake Sumter State College, Lassiter Ware Insurance, partnering with Auto Owners Insurance. All right, we're going to break right into it. With me now is new South Lake head football coach Brad Lord. Brad, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Brad, can you tell me a little bit about yourself for people that don't know, and as well as how did you come to be the head football coach at South Lake?
Well, I was a head football coach for 16 years at Foundation Academy in Winter Garden. We had a pretty good run there. Took the last few years off because I wanted to watch my son play. I didn't want to coach him. I wanted to be a dad. And a few of my friends talked me into coming to South Lake, and I love that they did. I love working there. The administration's awesome, and we have a very bright future there.
Yeah, you come from Foundation Academy, and you started there in roughly 2008 is when you started. At that time, Foundation, they were in a bit of a rut, I would say, when you got there, and you were able to build them back up into a winning football program. So how are you going to take what you did with Foundation and be able to build South Lake back into a winning football program?
Well, the recipe's pretty easy. Discipline, hard work, effort, the weight room, especially in football. I mean, the weight room's key. And in Florida, if you want to be a good football team, it's a year-round job. My coaching staff's going to be working year-round. Our players will be working year-round. We're going to put in the work. And South Lake, I mean, in the next few years, people are going to drop off their schedule because we will be a team that is very physical on Friday nights.
You come in and South Lake is 2-18 the last couple of years, so it was a difficult to watch that at South Lake the last couple of years. You've come in and you've talked about changing the culture of the program. How does that happen?
And everyone's got to have to buy in on it. We have 66 freshmen right now.
Wow. Playing
football. We got 125 playing between varsity and JV. So there's a buzz. But I was watching Seabiscuit the other night, and I remember the trainer saying he's been beat up, and he's been beat up, and he hasn't had much success. We got to teach him how to be a horse again. Well, we need to teach our players how to be players again and how to win. We had a nail biter the other night, but we made too many mistakes, turnovers, and penalties cost us. We lost 21-20 to a good First Academy team. But we're getting there. I mean, we hung with Matanzas, who's a 2-0 team, until the third quarter. Everyone's like, wow, Coach, it's getting better. Well, we're 0-2. To me, that's not better. But I do see progress. We got a great bunch of kids, and we're going to coach these kids up and have a blast doing it, and hopefully win some games soon.
Yeah, we certainly hope that you're able to get your first victory. I mean, you were very close in the Madison's game, along with the First Academy game, which if a couple of calls went your way, you probably would have had the win in that game.
Yeah, but we got to make it where calls don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
We have to take control in football, take control of the line of scrimmage, and be more disciplined. Our youth and inexperienced football IQs showed last Friday night. We will clean that up. We're on the bye this week. Then we play our first district opener with Westport next week at home. We're making Friday nights a buzz there, a fun place. We redid the stadium, repainted it, cleaned it up, redid concessions. So we're going to have food trucks there on Friday nights and make it a great experience with a good product. And we're not just looking for our football team to lead on the field. We're looking for our football team to what we call be beacons of light in the community and the school community, the school hallways, the cafeteria. So it all ties together. I've coached a long time. The good teams discipline themselves. The great teams even do it at a higher level. I've experienced a few of those teams. One of our teams I coached, we got to the state semifinals. That team, it was a COVID year. I'll never forget. We had to shut down for a week. Coaches couldn't coach. It was in 2020. Our captains coach. They had their own practices up in Grove, up at Four Corners, because we couldn't be there. That's leadership, and that's the type of athletes we're going to be looking to have on our team at Southlake High School.
Absolutely incredible what you're building down there. Those philosophies are terrific. You want to also talk about what a successful season looks like in this first year for you guys. What would you define as a successful season for Southlake?
The playoffs.
You want to make the playoffs?
Yep, the playoffs. I know people are saying, well, get a win first, Coach. You haven't had one in a while. We have some talent there. We can shock some people. We're getting better and better every practice. We're getting better and better every rep. And we need to keep elevating that, and the wins are going to come. If the kids could put that pressure off themselves about the first win, the wins are going to come. I know football, and you can see it.
Yeah, and we love those philosophies. We love what you're bringing down there for Southlake. We haven't seen the buzz like that in a long time down there, so we're really excited for you all. What made you come back to coaching full time? Because obviously you were watching your son the last couple of years
and playing too much golf.
I guess too much golf brought you back.
Well, my golf game has never been great. And when you start playing a lot and you don't even get that much better at it, you start getting frustrated. So. It's been a blessing for me. I've lost weight. Awesome. I love going to work every day and work 15 to 16-hour days. I believe it was divine intervention who brought me there with some friends. And I'm excited for Southlake. I love working with the principal, Mr. Benson. He's phenomenal. All the assistant principals, they're great. They've taught me a lot. Going from a roster, at 55 or 60 to a roster 126, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's a lot different. We have a different, diverse community on our football program, and we have different kids, and I can't have 5:30 in the morning practices like I did at Foundation Academy because a lot of my kids are on the bus loop, right? So it's great in September and August to have those morning practices because you miss the weather, but it's hard for us to do there because our kids are on the bus loop. So, you live and learn, and Coach Lord needs to be patient. He can't just knock doors down and get things done. He has to go through the process, and so it's a learning stage for me too.
Speaking about the process there, Coach, we talked a lot about NIL deals that are a hot topic in Florida. NIL deals are name, image, likeness, for those who don't know. What is the significance of this, and do you see it coming to high school sports in Florida? Because 30 out of 50 states currently have it.
It will be here within a year or so. And the schools that aren't ready for it will fall behind. One of the things I did in my last 4 or 5 years at Foundation Academies, I was the director of college placement and recruiting for placing kids in college sports. So that and I've learned a lot that way. The NIL deals are going to come, but I don't know how fast they are because of the transfer portal. So the transfer portal is going to slow down. I mean, you're going to have to be a real 4 or 5 star to get money in the NIL deals, I believe. Okay. Do I think they're coming? Yes. Do I think it's bad? I'm not going to say bad or good. I mean, it is coming. So schools will have to have someone in place to handle that with the parent. And needless to say, they'll probably have agents. Yeah. I mean, I'm serious. I mean, you see it in baseball for high school kids. They start getting, I mean, they're not supposed to, but there are people that are are representing high school kids if they're top-notch baseball players.
So if that does come into play, how does that change the landscape of high school sports in Florida? I mean, are you going to have kids transferring just like that? I mean, kids transfer now, and they're allowed to, whereas in other states, they're not exactly. Some states don't allow that to play wherever you want. Down here in Florida, I guess you can. How does that change the landscape?
I think it's going to change it tremendously. I think kids will flock to the schools at the end, and they're going to have to be careful because if they all go to one good school, let's take, for example, Jones has had a huge run over the last, 5 to 10 years, or Edgewater, right? If they all go there, no matter how good the coach is, I mean, you're only going to have your top-notch things. And again, I don't know how many of these deals, it's definitely going to happen, but you're going to have to be special to get one. Say, like, for example, the kid I coached at Foundation, Danny Stutzman. He'd be a type of kid who would be getting that. Brian Thomas, who's at South Carolina, who played for us. It's going to happen. I just don't know how many they're going to get. Because if I'm a college coach and I can get a kid, a defensive end who's been at Alabama for 2 years and has done well in school and has proven that he can be a college athlete over a high school kid that you're taking a chance on, I mean, it's a no-brainer. I'm going to go with a transfer portal kid all day long.
Yeah.
I think the other night, watching Florida State overcome a ton of penalties and mental mistakes, it showed how strong they did in the portal. You could tell that they did very well in the portal. You had older, mature kids that could overcome a ton of mistakes and a ton of penalties in the first half and have a second half like they did.
Yeah, it's unbelievable what's going on there. And if that does truly come to high school sports, it's going to set some interesting things up for the
There'll
future.
There'll be new people, new jobs for guidance people.
Wow.
That will be. I mean, you'll have to be an agent. You'll have to be versed in recruiting. Like I said, I was blessed my last 8 years. I had colleges coming in and out of our school hallways, so I learned a lot from the college coaches and going through the process. But the process is going to up. And then moms and dads are going to think all their little Johnnies should deserve an NIL deal. So that's going to be another thing on when they're going to go to school, where they're going to go to school.
Yeah, it's going to change a lot in the next couple of years. Brad, one last question before we let you go. What do you see as far as the future goes for Southlake? I mean, it's looking pretty bright as far as it goes for you.
Well, a lot of teams have us on the schedule this year. A lot of teams aren't going to want to have us on the schedule in the next few years.
Absolutely. Brad, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate it.
Take care, and I appreciate you guys, and go Eagles.
Go Eagles, absolutely. We'll be back. We're going to be talking to Patrick Todd when we return. Are you in need of a new car or truck? Then zoom into Vann Gannaway Chevrolet, a company that's always been driven by superior customer service. Vann Gannaway Chevrolet is your hometown good folk Chevrolet dealer. The dealership has helped generations of Lake County families find the perfect car, truck, or SUV. After 37 years and thousands of Chevrolets sold, Vann Gannaway has learned a lot about their customers. They don't want to be pressured, and they don't need a gimmick or giveaway. They just want fair prices and a great overall car buying experience. If you've had bad experiences purchasing automobiles elsewhere, then switch gears and try Vann Gannaway Chevrolet. Chances are you'll end up being a part of the ever-growing family of satisfied and loyal customers. Check out Vann Gannaway Chevrolet at vgchevy.com or call them today at 352-343-2400. Vann Gannaway Chevrolet. Find new roads. We're going to show you some of the scores from last week's Week 2 Friday Night Light football games. Man, there were some great games last week. We had a couple of blowout losses as well. But if you'd like to take a look at some of these scores, make sure to head on to lakeandsumterstyle.com and make sure to visit the SportsHub section. We've got all sorts of athlete stories on there, sports scores that you're going to find. That is the SportsHub section of the Lake and Sumter Style magazine website. Up next, we're going to be talking to Athletic Director of Umatilla High School, Patrick Todd. Right now, we have on the program the Umatilla Athletic Director, Patrick Todd. Patrick, welcome to the Sports Hub.
Great to be here. Appreciate you guys doing this. It's fantastic for Lake County and our student athletes. We really appreciate you having us here.
Absolutely, Patrick. Great to have you along. Those who don't know Patrick Todd, he has over 500 games won as a varsity basketball head coach for Leesburg, Eustis, Mount Dora Christian Academy. What's it been like coming back? Because you're coming back from a college. You have now, for the last couple of years, been the athletic director for Umatilla High School. Can you tell me about that process and what brought you to the community?
It's been great. You know, we've raised our kids here. I came here in 1988 as part of Leesburg High School's coaching staff and left there and went to Georgia State University, never sold our home, came back, was principal at Christian Home and Bible School, which is now Mount Dora Christian Academy, and then I was the head coach and athletic director at Florida College in Tampa, but my wife has continued to work here in Lake County. So this is where we've raised our children, and we feel vested in the community, and so it was just time for me to get closer to home.
Yeah.
Never really thought about Umatilla until we came back. I've always thought the Umatilla community was fantastic, but from an athletic standpoint, it really hadn't made a mark in Lake County, and so I had a couple of friends of mine, they're retired teachers and coaches, that said, you know, if you can build it at Umatilla, you know, that could be a legacy opportunity. I met Brent Frazier, and we saw things very similarly and really got excited about what could happen in Umatilla. And I think in our 4 years, this is our fourth year now, we've really changed the culture both academically and athletically. And Coach Samuels, who I think you're going to spend some time with later today, is a part of that change. And so we're just super excited about the kids, the families, the coaches, the teachers, and we're starting to see some fruits of that labor.
Yeah, and you mentioned Principal Frazier and what he's been able to bring to Umatilla. He obviously brings you in. What can you say about Principal Frazier? I mean, I've seen in the last couple of years sort of a narrative change within the Umatilla high school community.
Well, I think the thing that's exciting about Brent is he has a lot of energy, and he's invested in children. And so, you know, when you think about schools that are impactful, they're schools that are student-centered, not adult-centered. And he's a student-centered leader. And so as a former principal, as a former college athletic director, the successful programs that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of has always kept the student and the student athlete in the focus of what they're doing. So we began to talk about ways in which we can and not ways in which we can't.
Right.
And so I think he had a great strategic plan in terms of what he wanted to do academically. We were fortunate to have opportunity to bring in like-minded people to support that plan. And then our students have worked incredibly hard. And so as we look at our test scores, as they line up across the district, we've gone from last to first, if you will, in so many areas. Right now we have the highest test scores in mathematics, second in English. We are producing a graduate now well prepared to walk into a classroom at the collegiate level and compete. I think on the athletic side, we have had great people involved in our programs throughout years, but we've fielded teams and not developed programs. And so we wanted to shift that dynamic to really developing programs, and then part of that is creating a collegiate experience at the high school level for our student athletes. And that's from how you prepare, how you practice, how you play, how you dress, how you walk, how you talk, how you communicate in your classroom, all the way down to the playing field and the court. And so we're in the journey, but the joy's in the journey, and we're excited about it.
Yeah, being that you come from Florida College, you come back to Umatilla. What did you bring from your experience at Florida College back to the Umatilla community, especially the high school? Well,
I think from a basketball standpoint, I didn't have 4 7-footers on my bench, and I didn't have 2 All-American guards, and so the talent level was certainly a different. Matter of fact, it took a lot of adjustment. I remember my first practice, and I'm talking about a pin-down screen, and finally our best player, who's a college player right now, says, "Coach, we don't know what a pin-down screen is." So I had to adjust my whole thinking to that. But you know, when we went to Florida College, they hadn't won in 20 years, and in our first year, we went to a national tournament, and we went to 5 national tournaments in our time there. You know, played on the ESPN 7 or 8 different times, and I think it goes back to the same thing that Brent Frazier and I have talked about from day one, is let's make it student-centered. Let's be excellent in all that we do. Let's provide our people with the tools they need to produce excellence, and then let's demand the most from ourselves and from our student athletes. And so we've been able to turn it around. Umatilla hadn't had a winning season in 50 years. We've had 3 in a row. We went to the state playoffs last year. We hope to go back again this year.
You almost did it last year too.
And so we're knocking on the door. And but what we're seeing it in baseball, we're seeing it in football, we're seeing it in all of our sports, and we're growing. Now it doesn't mean that some days you feel like you're taking a step backwards because it's tough. It's tough treading. But in the long run, we know what our goals are. We know what our plan is. We believe our plan to be right. We constantly evaluate that plan. And I think we're communicating to our kids that why not us? Why not us? And so we're starting to see some things on campus that are really exciting. The first thing we see is our kids expect to do well academically now. That's a different change than when we walked on campus 3 years ago. And athletically, our kids expect to win. And I think that's been the hardest part to turn, to be honest with you, is because for so long there was a comfort level in not necessarily being successful. And now we want there to be a comfort level in being successful and to be uncomfortable when we're not. And so I think there's a lot of ways to look at that. For us, we want to have, I think self-evaluation is a huge tool. And so if we're not successful, why aren't we successful? And that starts with me. And so you got to look at yourself every day. I mean, you got to be accountable every day. If we're talking about really growing great human beings, our kind of our mantra is developing champions of character.
Right.
So, when it really gets down to it, no one's going to remember who wins the state championship. They're going to remember if you paid your bills. They're going to remember what kind of father you are, what kind of husband you are, what kind of community member you are. We want to develop young men and women that can champion those ideas, and we think athletics gives us a great platform to do that.
I talked to Principal Frazier as well about the ACE program that Umatilla has going on. Can you talk a little bit about that for those who don't know about the ACE program?
Yeah, the Cambridge ACE program has been really great for, as a former principal, I think one of the challenges with AP curriculum is the AP curriculum is great, but the national pass rate to get that college credit is very low.
Yeah.
And historically that's been the case. And so the ACE Cambridge program it's a rigorous program, but the pass rate for those national testing scores are a little bit better. And so we've been able to launch that. We're only in, this will be our third year, but really our third year is really our first year of doing it across the board in our curriculum. So now there's opportunities for kids to earn that ACE diploma. So our current junior class is on track to have those ACE diplomas. So those kids are going to get college credits on our campus without ever having to leave campus and their high school credit, and that's a huge deal. So when you start to think about almost having an AA degree, that's a lot of money for a parent to be thinking about planning for college. But what I think it's done, the other part is our kids now expect to go to college. And I think every school in our district is different. And one of the blueprints, I think, is that when you look at Mineola or East Ridge, those are probably families that are sending their kids to school that are college graduates. In Umatilla, historically, we don't have as many college graduates sending their kids there. So it's a blue-collar community. Now our kids are thinking, well, yeah, college is for me. That is what I'm doing. And you know what? I'm prepared to compete in that classroom, and I'm prepared to start to dream dreams that I didn't think could happen before. And so that's pretty exciting. When you can teach a kid to dream, I think you've opened the door to a lifetime of success. Yeah,
it's huge, especially with that ACE program. What Umatilla is doing is fantastic. And a couple of other schools in the area are catching on to that as well, which I think is fantastic. Let's switch gears. Let's talk about football for a moment. And you obviously lost Coach Kearney to Mount Dora High School this year. Coach Kearney joined them. As that happens, you have your sights set on a new head football coach for Umatilla. That just so happened to be Eric Samuels. How did that develop?
Well, I think what I learned at the collegiate level as an administrator is you're always in the back of your mind have a short list of people you want to work through should jobs open up. And at the college level, coaches are moving in. It's a moving platform. You can see that in the landscape of conferences right now. So I had a short list of guys that if our job ever opened, that I would want to have a conversation with, and Coach Samuels was certainly one of those. I think the one thing about Coach Cerny, when he came to Umatilla's had a long history of tough sledding, so to speak, in football, and he did some things that I think put us in a competitive nature, and we appreciate that. And as he moved on to his opportunity at Mount Dora, we were looking for someone who shared the same vision we have for not only for football, but for our whole school. And we wanted a person that had ties to our community. And Coach Samuels played at Umatilla. One of the things I think is interesting about his story is he was on an 0-10 football team, but he parlayed that into a scholarship at Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
So he's invested. He's invested in our community, and that was important to us. I wanted someone that could lay out a plan of success that mirrored our foundational core values. And so as we began those conversations, it became very clear very quickly that he was a guy that we wanted, and we were fortunate enough to get him.
Yeah, and the fact that he did go 0-10 his senior year and was able to go on to a fantastic career in the SEC, playing for Vanderbilt, ended up playing professionally in the CFL, which is fantastic. And he spent the last couple of years in the community in Wildwood. So he comes on board. What are you looking forward to in the next couple of years at Umatilla as you continue to grow?
Well, I think the one thing that I think to have an appreciation for where you want to go, you have to appreciate where you've been. And the one thing I appreciate about Coach Samuels right away is he recognized the work that Coach Cerny had done and appreciated that. And I thought that showed a tremendous amount of maturity from him, and it validated those core values that I know he has. But what he has done is he's laid the foundation for a culture that is program changing. And, I think everybody measures success differently. Sometimes we measure it in wins and losses. And of course, in athletics, that's part of the equation. But what kind of student athlete are we producing at the end of our 4 years with them? Those things those matter to us, and he understands that the work ethic that's going to lead to success there is going to be the same work ethic that's going to lead to success in their families when they're raising their children, and what kind of contributor they're going to be to our community. He understands that. He's not taking shortcuts to win. He wants it done the right way. He wants our kids to behave the right way, act the right way, practice the right way. Those are all the things that I believe to be so important. And I also believe is those are the core values that I think are lost in our college and high school sports today. I mean, what's happened with collegiate athletics with the NIL and the trickle down to the high school. It's not uncommon now. My last recruiting class I had at the college level, I signed 4 kids who were at 4 different high schools in 4 different years, and that's the norm, and that shouldn't be. And so we want kids that want to work hard, want to do it the right way, want to pay a price to be great, and he mirrors that in such a huge way. So we're super excited to have him.
Well, Coach, it's been a pleasure having you on. We're running out of time here, but I'll tell you what, you're doing great things at Umatilla High School, and thank you so much for coming on the Sports Hub today.
I appreciate you having us. Thank you.
All right, when we come back, we'll wrap the show up. You're watching the Sports Hub podcast. Lake County families are a close-knit bunch. Nobody wants an aging family member who is unable to care for themselves to be home alone. Lake Center Home Care believes the best healing happens when you're most comfortable. The company provides... I'm going to do that one more time. Nobody wants an aging family member who is unable to care for themselves to be home alone. Lake Center Home Care believes the best healing happens when you're most comfortable. The company provides exceptional personal care in the comfort and privacy of your own home. Whether you need skilled nursing, physical therapy, occupational therapy, home health aides, or companion services, your loved ones will enjoy peace of mind knowing you're being taken care of and treated with respect and dignity. Lake Center Home Care is locally owned and managed with a team of highly qualified professionals who are passionate about taking care of their neighbors. Call 352-315-0050 or visit golch.com
sportshub.com to learn more about this amazing company. Back here on the Sports Hub podcast with Kyle Coppola. That's going to do it for this week's edition. We got a bonus episode coming your way this week. We're going to be talking with head coach of Umatilla, Eric Samuels. We're also going to be talking to a couple of surprise players we're going to be bringing on the show as well. We'll see you on the next edition of the Sports Hub podcast.
This has been the Style Sports Hub, presented by Vann Gannaway Chevrolet.